Why did that teacher get fired from your school? My math teacher was a volunteer first responder in NY. She left school to help out during 9/11 and was fired for not showing back up for 2 weeks. One of my high school teachers was caught on to catch a predator. She had fallen off the wagon and was drinking a lot to the point where it was affecting her memory. We kept doing the same lecture on density in 6th grade science for a month, until one of my classmates decided to ask another teacher about it. From there she went to rehab. If anyone wants more context, she was our homeroom and science teacher. She was very nice and married to our assistant principal, so she had a little bit more leeway. While she was able to remain sober for a while, she eventually passed away due to the effects of her addiction a few years after this. She never seemed like a bad teacher, but she was always stressed to the absolute maximum, always felt like she was working from behind, and generally struggling to keep up. You know, the traditional tail end of the functioning addict lifestyle, affecting rather than affecting. That may have been one of the lessons I missed. 2 teachers. They got caught ducking in a classroom. One of the elementary school teachers at the district I went to got arrested for making his class worship him like he was a cult leader. He was totally bonkers. Students laughed she ate toothpaste. Turns out she was an alcoholic trying to cover her breath. Our beloved teacher, Mr. Morn, had worked there for 29 years without incident and was one of the best teachers there. His classroom was always a laugh riot. He was the best roaster and encourages us to roast him properly. He never failed to get us motivated and a lot of us owe our career inspiration from him. He was fired because he had jokingly smacked a student on the back of his head for making a stupid comment. It was like something out of a sitcom and all of us expected it and loved it. Yet one student, who was new at the school, was culture shocked by this. He thought it was strange but hilarious. He told his mom offhandedly and his mom became the Karen. Never mind that the student was the teacher's godson. No physical contact was allowed, says the Karen. He was suspended with pay for 3 months pending investigation, then was let go because the Karen twisted the story and it blew up around the school. A year later, teacher won both the lawsuit against the school and libel case against the Karen, with her son being one of the key witnesses. We still keep in contact and roast him for getting rich over smacking kids around. Geeky AV teacher that everyone loved, knew he was a geek and owned it. Caught in a predator sting trying to solicit underage girls. The kicker was a spring school levy was coming up. Local police conspired with the school district to hide the charges for 3 weeks until the levy was passed. Someone substituted his class for 3 weeks. Yeah, everyone was both devastated and pissed. The district ended the school year early. Explained elasticity by pulling the bra strap of a girl. Another one for having relationship with a girl from 8th grade. 14-year. He didn't come to parent-teacher interview night. The next day, he was late for class and crashed his pickup into a brick sign outside the school. Cops showed up obviously and allegedly he blew twice the legal limit. He called the principal a cunt as he was taken away. My sociology teacher in high school was fired for throwing a chalkboard eraser at a sleeping student's head. He was a great teacher and always did this in good humor. Obviously not a great idea in retrospect, but we all knew that we could get away with sleeping in his class if we didn't mind getting an eraser upside the head if he noticed. I heard he was fired a few years after I graduated high school, and that kinda bummed me out. Probably deserving of a reprimand of some sort, but not getting fired. It's not like he was a sex offender or guitar player. One was fired for beating his wife and kids. Another one, assistant principal, was fired for sex with a male student on campus in her office. Another, the principal, resigned because he knew about that and let it happen. Edit. Here's a link, haha. My high school of less than 500 students lost 5 teachers last year because they all had a relationship with the same 15-year-old girl. I heard a rumor that my favorite teacher from 9th grade got fired when I was in 10th grade because he left his class unattended. He pushed some dumbass kid who hit him against a wall. He straight up didn't show up to work one Monday. Didn't call in to arrange a sub or anything. He ghosted the school for a whole week and then tried to come in the following Monday like nothing happened. We also had a 5th grade teacher overdose on meth, but I honestly don't know if she got fired or resigned. It didn't happen at school. My AP Chem teacher had an affair with the principal. Principal got fired too. I felt bad for her. They didn't do anything on school property, and it didn't impact her performance in the classroom. Also, the school wasn't able to find a qualified teacher to replace her halfway through the year. So we were all ducked come test time at the end of the year. Not one of us passed that AP test. High school gym teacher. Apparently he showed up to a hotel room expecting to bang a 13-year-old but got busted by the cops instead. One was such an unlikable teacher they were asked to retire. One was watching porn in class. One sent someone else's D-pics to a student's mom. One robbed a bank. She was always drunk and drinking during class. She would leave us to cry in the bathroom. Oh boy, where to start? Elementary school nurse was fired for taking the kids' medications. HS band teacher slept with a 15-year-old. Swim coach left a hotel that he was at with his mistress drunk and killed someone with his car. My high school had like 400 students. Dating a 16-year-old student. He was the band teacher. He also had a wife and kid. He went to jail and is now a registered Red 6 offender. A co-worker teacher got fired 2 weeks in the new semester when instead of uploading a video related to his subject, he instead accidentally continued a previously paused hardcore lesbian scene on the big interactive screen. The computer he was using was slow and itty too, so he couldn't quickly exit the video. It went on for a good 30 seconds before someone pulled the plug on the screen around the same time he lobbed the laptop about 30 feet across the class. I still think about this all the time. The assistant principal that kicked me out school for smoking weed got arrested for picking up a prostitute, then fired. He was legally blind and ended up stabbing and killing his wife. Sending nudes to a student. She embezzled thousands of dollars from various club funds. There were also rumors of her sleeping with students, but the administration never bothered to look into that. Having sex with a student, more like 10. His wife wasn't happy to find out about that. The one that for fired was a substitute teacher and coach of a girls team for grade 7-9. He seemed a bit creepy, and we joked that he liked coaching the girls and teaching pay so he could watch the girls run around in their shorts. Turns out that wasn't far from the truth. His full-time job was in the medical field, where he was caught doing inappropriate things to female patients, some of whom being kids he coached and taught, and he had 2 sons in that school. This one didn't get fired, but she was at the point where she had a few classes taken from her, and if she did anything wrong, she would have been gone. Why? Well, she didn't know the subject she was teaching, and would make stuff up rather than admitting she didn't know the answer. She was always mad, and we called her Popsicle because she acted like she had a stick up her ass. But the biggest thing was that she failed 2 grade 11 classes, the whole class, because apparently not one person, including the smartest people in the school, passed any tests. TW. Suicide. Our principal was escorted out by 2 police. Come to find out it was because he was caught committing fraud. He would assign students to classes without telling them to make it seem there were more kids in, let's say, the art department, so that the department would receive more funding from the government to continue. He meant well, but students caught on when we moved to college and transcripts from high school had a whole page F-saw withdrawals. It really messed us up. About 2 weeks later he hung himself, left behind a wife and kids. It really hit me hard because I almost dropped out of high school after 2 of my friends committed suicide. He was the one that got me counseling, helped me graduate, and encouraged me to go to college. I would not be here if it weren't for him. It just really hurt to know that while he was helping me accomplish that, he did the same thing only a month or 2 later. We planted trees for him to remember him by. RIPMR. Woodcroft. You meant well. Had a history teacher get fired for going off syllabus and spending time on the pre-Judaic flood stories. One of maybe 2 reasons I'm obsessed with Mesopotamian, Anatolian, Egyptian history now. Threesome with 2 guys in her English class and doing blow with a bunch of students. The art teacher at my middle school was known to be very suspicious. I've heard that he will take pictures of girls and touch girls, and adding to the fact that he called 2 girls lesbians in front of the whole class. It was just very weird. All these rumors and he got fired eventually. I can't imagine how his wife must have felt when she asked why he got fired. Middle school PE teacher walked into the girls' wardrobe and asked if he could watch one of them change their tampon as a joke. Coach history teacher, of course. First off, some of the early warning signs we all should have noticed first. He showed up the first day of school and told us he was a youth minister and that we would always see him in long sleeves and pants because he had tattoos and he regrets them. That he didn't want to accidentally encourage any of us to get some too. 2 weeks later he is in shorts and polo shirts showing off multiple Looney Tunes tattoos. He taught 6th grade US history out of a textbook. Word for word. We did multiple chapters a day and were expected to do every assignment listed for each chapter. This averaged about 3 hours of work a day. In 6th grade, he was the only class that year to regularly assign homework and he received multiple parent complaints about the workload. He would often leave the class alone to read chapters. He would then go out to the hall or parking lot to make out with his girlfriend who would arrive randomly. He was the middle school track coach and thus spent a lot of time in and around the middle school locker rooms. Too much time. He took photos of the kids running for the yearbook. These pictures eventually made it onto his work computer desktop. Then his phone background. Only the girls though. But the final straw that got us out of his care. He showed up to a middle school basketball game drunk and tried to yell at the ref. He was fired that day and not allowed back on campus. She wasn't enforcing detention, letting students leave early, or just signing their name for them. She was also the mom of a student. They fired her and all the students that regularly received detention rioted, jumping on cars, flipping trash cans. They set one on fire and pulled the fire alarm 7 times in a day. I forget how it was quelled, but it only lasted a day. Wasn't a teacher but our vice principal. Essentially our principal bumped her twin niece's class ranks up to valedictorian and salutatorian. The vice principal, one of the nicest guys I've ever met and a truly amazing guy, did what was right and confronted the school board and told them that this was unfair to those who actually earned those ranks. Those twins were some of the most average people I've ever encountered in my life and they didn't work nearly as hard as the other candidates for the spot. It doesn't help that everyone on the school board including the superintendent was related to the principal. Thus, our heroic vice principal was fired and it was a shock to the whole school. They tried covering it up by saying he didn't have the proper documentation education to be in his position. Though if that was the case, I'm not sure why they would hire him and let him stay for the first 2 years of my high school career. Everyone knew it was a sham and the local news actually got involved when I called them during lunch. That next football game, NBC showed up and there was a protest outside of the local library. I printed out almost 100 flyers that read, "What are you gonna do? Fire me? Save Lightfoot." The entire school was pissed and the twins' ranks were promptly demoted back to 21st and 22nd in our class, though not until the next school year started. Edit. Holy crap, thank you guys for the upvotes. I'm new to Reddit and I'm glad that I could share my experience with you guys. Him and his college buddies invited an underage student over to his house for drinks. They then proceeded to drug and abuse her. He still kept his job for a while after the fact because the girl was terrified and didn't know what to do, so she told her friends, which then made the story spread like wildfire and all the people in a position to do something about it thought it was just a prank. Well, turns out it wasn't a prank. He got sent to prison. Considering it was a drugging and gang abuse of a minor, he is probably out by now. I guarantee you he left the state because everyone and their angry redneck dad with a 12 gauge knew about what he did. IAP English teacher got high on painkillers, broke into someone's house, and ate their soup. He accidentally made a really racist joke thinking the class would think it was funny. They didn't OFC, so he was fired that day. Teachers at my high school got fired on a pretty regular basis. Principal was a narcissist, but here's one of the rare ones we actually heard about. The school went into lockdown because someone was seen hopping over the fence onto campus at the start of the school day. Freshman geography teacher locked his door, didn't control his class, wouldn't let one of the students back in, and jumped at every sound he heard. For comparison, the sub in senior literature next door didn't have a key to lock the door, but grabbed the handle, got on the floor, and planted both his feet on the frame so that the door couldn't be opened. I think the dude was a linebacker for football. 2. She ducked a 12-year-old, went to jail, ducked him again, went to jail again, and then married him when he turned 18. My football coach bullied the gay kid on the team enough that it had a big enough impact on him that the kid killed himself. The coach was mentioned in the note and the teacher coach resigned. The coach was a total asshole to people he didn't like, including me and a few others on the team. Since he wasn't allowed to kick kids off the team, he would pretty much bully the kids to quit. Janitor filmed his teenage daughters in the shower. This was 25 years ago. So it was an elaborate rig using cameras that had film cassette tapes. Premeditated. Creepy it. We looked through that house when it came on the market for sale and it had an awful feel, only realized later why. They found out he was gay. He was a chaperone for the 8th grade East Coast trip. And parents of boys got all up in arms that he had access to their hotel rooms. No student has ever accused him of anything inappropriate. Apparently he called a girl a whore or something similar and they were in 7th grade. They seemed like a cool science teacher before though. One PE teacher got called out for having erections while watching the girls play sports. Got confronted by the principal, to whom he told it wasn't true, that it just seemed like he had erections because he has a really big D. The principal, male, was not amused. The PE teacher was fired that same week. Staring at the girls' asses while they were doing squats. Hooked up with 2 teen girls at the school and smoked weed at his house with them. Teaching us about evolution. I realize that sounds ridiculous and made up, but it seriously happened in my small Texas school. Kindergarten teacher would dig furrows into kids' arms with her long, sharp nails by basically holding their arms real tightly. She did this if she caught them misbehaving during recess. It happened to me when I was running when I shouldn't have. I think this was nearly 40 years ago. I showed the principal my arm as he was walking out one day and she was fired on the spot. I think I was 4 at the time and didn't realize exactly what I did at the time. Crazy it. There was a tornado in our area. The college I was in was leasing a multi-floor office building. Alarms were sounding outside, and people were retreating into the stairwells for safety. Teacher blew it off and said people were just making it up to be funny. Learned when I got home that the tornado was right outside the window I was sitting next to. Reported him to the faculty. So did others. He was gone the following week. A teacher gave alcohol to some students in a field trip out of the country. They students were 16-17 and they asked if they could order beer. Later they took photos and it was all over Facebook. This was years after I graduated, but rumors spread quickly. I replaced one teacher. She was young and pretty and was photographed kissing one of the seniors in the parking lot. He got a female student pregnant at the same time his wife was pregnant. His wife was and still is a gym teacher at the school. I went to a pretty conservative Catholic school. In 7th grade we had a music teacher that pretty much only taught us lyrics to Bob Dylan songs and other 60s hippie music. He was gone the next year. Strictest teacher in the history of the school left his laptop up with dominatrix porn. She, teacher, was helping cover up an affair between a female student and a male baseball coach. She also was the proxy between them. For example, the coach bought the girl a necklace so he gave it to the teacher who in turn gave it to the student. Everything blew up when the student's parents looked through her phone and found a bunch of inappropriate texts. The teacher did not serve any time. She lost her license though. Our elementary school just got a new principal, Mr. Tepner, who was on some ducking power trip or summit and he fired all the newer teachers at my school including my 5th grade teacher, Mr. Deathloff. If you're out there, you will always be the best teacher I've ever had. The dude was so bad at teaching even the negligent admin took notice. Showed R-rated movies to middle schoolers. Shame. I thought he was a great teacher. She stepped out of class to talk to the principal and a student was going to hide her thermos. They opened the lid to smell it. It was vodka. He had enough of that one arsehole kid who would disrupt class and talk it. One time he punched him in the side of the head while he was still in his seat. Knocked him and his desk over. The kid was fat SND, wore tracksuits to class and thought he was the it. But he wasn't and had it coming. Everyone gave the teacher props but he knew it was over and just walked out. One teacher had sex with a student during a marching band trip. Oh, and my home ec teacher got busted for selling meth. Lots of stories here. Basically teacher plus Goral plus 6 equals fired. My teacher was smart. He started dating a girl her freshman year. When she turned 18, she graduated early. He resigned and they jumped the wagon. Never to be heard from again. Worst part? She was dating some other guy at 16. Got pregnant and claimed it was the boyfriend's. When they left, she took the kid with them. The teacher was in his 40s with a wife and 2 kids. MR. Boer and Alyssa, if you see this. Holland is now married with 2 kids and MRS. Lisbon remarried as well. He was accused and caught on camera grabbing female high school students' butts in the crowded hallways. He had numerous accusations brought against him for cornering female students when they were alone, giving special treatment to females in his class, making sexual comments in class, and even following a student home one day in his car. I was one of the students who had to report and give a written account of my interactions with him. He was fired after the police got involved. Thank Duck. Let's see which one. The 4th grade teacher arrested for raping his foster son. The 6th grade gym teacher caught with CP on the school supplied computer. The high school teacher exposing himself on Main Street. A high school vice principal found banging a 15-year-old in his backseat. Or do you want to hear about the alcoholics? Sleeping with students. Sending nudes on school devices. Being drunk on the job. It was a wild year. Oh. How can I forget the parent who left her husband for the lady gym teacher and subsequently got the gym teacher fired. They found out his diploma was a forgery. He never attended or graduated from any college to be able to teach. No one was surprised because he didn't last a year and he didn't even attempt a lesson plan. So it was only a matter of time. No idea what he was thinking would happen.